Welcome to Rauta's opinion videos. Today's topic is band reunions, gold or shit. Now this topic came to my mind as I was driving home from the gym and thinking all this debate around Pantera reunion. What a nice timing, by the way, since I just did Pantera worst to best, also known as ranking video, earlier this spring, just a couple of months ago. Now, didn't I see that coming, that Pantera would be actually making reunion? After all, two founding members, one could say the brain and heart of the band, the Darrell brothers, well, they died so many years ago, and since they are gone, how could Pantera reunion even come to be? That is, how much does it really make a sense? Now, obviously, Pantera was a big band, especially during the 90s and early 2000s, and defined in a way the whole groove metal thing. Groove metal, which is not necessarily a genre of its own, but let's be honest about it, owes a lot to thrash metal, but is still a little bit different. And because of various successes made with the given style, I mean, there isn't exactly too many bands doing like that. I mean, it's in a way much like Type O Negative in its own niche. You can pretty much find certain qualities that are not so apparent in so many bands. And that made Pantera so much loved and also hated. Sometimes because of the audience, sometimes because of its musical style, and all those comments and qualities of the people in the band, etc., 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 which eventually led to the nasty situations with the band. One of the main men being, shot on stage. I mean, who the fuck does that? And also other things along the way. But now it's been said that Pantera is supposed to be back. And because of that thing, whole raised a lot of eyebrows, and people had these strong opinions like it's not real Pantera, it's more like Phil Anselmo and the guys playing Pantera and all that stuff. It made me think, what do you really need in order to use a certain band name? How much certain qualities you need to justify to be called like that? For example, Dom G. Warrior playing old Hellhammer stuff isn't using the name Hellhammer, let alone Celtic Frost, to do that. But it's Triumph of Death. And he explained this very well in an interview I did with him earlier this spring at Inferno Festival in Norway. But that is his way to see things, which I can totally agree with, I can totally respect, but I don't think that is the only truth or only way to do that. Now, if we take a look at Merciful Fate, what they're doing with their reunion, you can pretty much see that the lineup is far from being the original. Okay, let's be honest about it also. Two of those main guys in the band are also founding members. So we can say it's, in a way, having the heart and the brain of the band, whatever you want to call it. At least two original founding members of the band are still there. But is the founding members the only way we really think about a band when we're talking about it? Because, after all, there is this definition known as classic lineup. Sometimes founding and classic lineups are exactly the same. Sometimes, however, they're totally two different things. I mean, there are lots of bands which are not exactly classic because of the founding members. Sometimes you only need to change a certain individual to become a classic. Iron Maiden is, in my opinion, a good example. I mean, if it was because Paul Di'Anno that Iron Maiden was big, or everybody would be shitting and pissing on Bruce Dickinson the same way that people disrespected Blaze Bayley back in the days. And there are lots of bands like that. I mean, sometimes people say, yeah, Metallica isn't the same after Cliff Burton died, or even after Dave Mustaine was, forced out of the band. So there are various ways to see which is the classic lineup. Some bands made their classic lineups maybe after 5 or 10 years after being founded, and very different lineup. But Panther is an interesting case because, in a way, it has 2 out of 4 members of the so-called classic lineup. Yes, missing Vinnie Paul, the drummer. Yes, missing Dimebag Darrell, the guitarist, who then again created the whole style of Pantera and made the riffs, mostly anyway. If not all, I don't really know. But, I mean, it's not like Pantera's early days are the ones that we consider classic, because it's not like Phil Anselmo was back in the days in Pantera, when the band was founded. But actually, those four first albums by Pantera, they're even missing from the Spotify, because it's not like people see that as the Pantera they know. It was more about this glam style before they actually started, kind of a man up thing with their style, becoming heavier, becoming groovier, becoming trashier and all that stuff. So classic lineup versus the founding lineup, not exactly the same thing. We could even talk about Anthrax in that sense. It's not like Joey Belladonna is the original Anthrax vocalist, but he's definitely the part of the classic one. But once again, this is very much related to what is seen as a classic lineup. There is no legal definition of that. There are no jurisdiction to define, okay, this is the classic one and you can use the name and all that stuff. How names are allowed to use, that's one thing, and the other thing is how does the fan base react to it. Some people are gonna see Pantera despite of the missing founding members, and some people are not just, skipping them because they're mad, they're furious about it. Now my take is, I don't really give a damn what kind of a lineup is if there are at least some members of the band, as long as the music is good. Now, is it a Pantera cover band? I don't really think so. Should they be using another name? I'm on the verge, but I would say no. Why? Because 2 parts out of 4, 50% are still of the classic lineup, which is then again more than Merciful Fate doing. Oh, about Sepultura. They did a show here in Finland, for example, where there was only one original member of the band. That is 25% of the band doing Sepultura gig. Were people mad about it? I don't think so. Was it weird? I guess, in a way, yeah. I mean, classic lineup for Sepultura would definitely require the Cavalera brothers. But Sepultura hasn't been like that for how many years? Some people are mad about it. They refuse to listen to that or call that band a Sepultura. But let's be honest about it. It's beyond those 2 brothers. Same goes for Pantera. Even if the founding members, those brothers, were there to define what Pantera was, it took more than that. After all, Phil Anselmo is as much the face and the sound, that is, the vocals of Pantera, as much as, say, James Hetfield is of Metallica, or Dave Mustaine is, Megadeth. And you could go on with that list. And let's not even get started about Black Sabbath and the likes. Yes, certainly, the classic lineup, the original one, is something that people totally love. But there are a lot of people who are like, hey, it only got better after Ozzy got out of the band. Why? Because, well, there were better vocalists. So once again, it totally depends on a couple of factors. Founding thing is one thing, and that is something that is factual. Classic lineup, that is more about the opinions really, because like I said, there is no legal ways to just describe it or define it. And also what comes into play is so-called after discovery moment, AD. And that is when you got to know the band. Like there's the saying, how people love certain bands is based on their after discovery thing. Now, let's say if you came into liking Slayer with, say, God Hates Us All, that would be your after discovery thing. And that would be your starting point. Obviously, albums such as, Show No Mercy or Rain in Blood wouldn't have the same impact because they were not the starting point for you. And you might feel like, okay, these old albums are not exactly that thing for me. For example, for me, Anthrax, I never actually listened to the first album, Fistful of Metal, until to this year, because my discovery for Anthrax was in the mid 80s or late 80s probably. And as such, I missed the first album back in the days. That wasn't defining Anthrax for me. My AD point would have been the first album or second album. I don't really remember, but along those lines. For Metallica, well, I got to hear everything from pretty much the beginning. Not when they came out, but when I got to know the band, they were pretty fresh for me anyway. And there are lots of things like that. So defining once again classic lineup versus founding line, the founding members lineup, and what is your after discovery thing. I mean, what got you going with the band? These are very different things. Now, as such, you probably know there is no totally perfect answer to this. What kind of reunions are gold and which are shit? What matters in my opinion is, once again, if the music is good, take my money. But if I don't care about the band, I don't even care if it's all 100% founding members. That's kind of a given, right? And as such, people should really take this into perspective. For example, if you didn't see Pantera back in the 90s or early 2000s, not to mention 1980s when the band was quite different, I mean, why not give now it a try? Because after all, that might be the only version of Pantera you're ever going to see. I was lucky to see the band in first time in 1994, and I think the second time was probably 1999. Roughly, might have been 1998, I'm not sure, but anyway, within 4 or 5 years, I got to see the band twice. And that was when the band was rocking, kicking ass and making their best music and all that stuff. Now, would I still like to see it these days, more than 20 years after the last time I've seen it? Definitely. And not only because there would be a little bit of nostalgia or interest to see how the band is with the current lineup, it would be also see because I actually respect the artists who are supposed to be there. Anthrax drummer and Zakk Wylde having its groovy guitar doing that. No, I'm not even Zakk Wylde fan, but I think he would fit the band totally. Anthrax drummer? Sure, why not? I mean, probably better drummer than Vinnie Paul ever was. Rest in peace. So I think before people judge, people should really give it a second thought before they type it all on the social media and spread all this disrespect, hate, and just general bitching. Because, there are certain times and moments that once they are past, you really can't go back. I never could witness Pink Floyd live, which is a fucking shame if you ask me. I got to see, Brit Floyd, which is essentially a cover band doing Pink Floyd, but with all the visual side and everything. And they really were as close I could get to real Pink Floyd experience with the music and songs I just happen to love. So, if I got to choose bands that were as close as possible to those kind of things, why the hell not? I'm a fan of music. I might not be the fan of the artists. And this is, in my opinion, the most defining things you get to say. But of course, you decide. What do you think about reunions? Would you define what is right and what is wrong? What is gold and what is shit when it comes to reunion? Looking forward to your comments, and if we can make this a fruitful conversation, maybe we can talk it again with another video coming your way. Meanwhile, enjoy some good music and enjoy your holiday or weekend. Bye bye.